You're listening to Beyond Wellness Radio, bringing you the cutting edge in health, nutrition, and sports performance. Stay up to date and listen anywhere, anytime on your computer, tablet, or smartphone by subscribing on iTunes. Catch your hosts, Dr. Justin Marchegiani and Barris Harvey, as they answer your burning health questions as well as interviews from world-renowned guest experts. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.
Welcome again to another awesome episode of Beyond Wellness Radio. Before I get into today's show, I want to tell you guys a little bit about the newsletter. Go to beyondwellnessradio.com and hit the button that says newsletter sign up. By doing this, you will never miss out on an episode. Be the first one to hear it as it is sent to your inbox each week. Want even more? Click on Justin Health. It links directly to Dr. Justin's page, and you get direct access to him. Are you having any thyroid issues? Well, we've got your back. Hit the link that says Fix Your Thyroid, and by doing so and signing up to the newsletter, you'll get a video series that tells you exactly how to do just that, fix your thyroid. Also, you can have direct contact to me when you go to Beyond Wellness Radio site and click the link above. I'll leave you guys to go over and check that out. So how's it going, Dr. Justin?
Barris, it's going great today, man. Very good day. Looking forward to the weekend.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's always great to have these Friday mornings conversations about health and nutrition and kind of get the day started right.
Absolutely, man. And I'm gonna already jump the boat because I already know your question. What did I have this morning?
Yeah.
Today's an intermittent fast, so not too much today. Just took some probiotics and a little bit of coffee and butter and MCT. So I'm just tapping into my fat reserves right now and going to have some nice lunch. I got some kale salad with some olive oil and ginger vinaigrette, and I'll have probably some chicken thighs that are sautéed in cumin and bacon with the skin on. So I am super stoked. I actually posted the meal last night on Instagram, so if you want to see what it looks like, it's pretty darn good. Justin Health on Instagram.
Oh yeah, definitely. Can't go wrong with chicken thighs. It's funny because everything about chicken is just delicious, but chicken thighs are really underrated, like that, the really good dark meat. So that's one of my, and it's so easy to make too.
Oh, and they're cheaper. Dude, they're cheaper.
Yeah,
they're cheaper than regular chicken. Like when I was like a poor doctoral student, right, I would go to Whole Foods, and the secret was you get the family pack. You'd order 3 pounds or more. They'd knock off, I think, 10% per pound. And I keep the skin on because you get the extra nutrients from the skin. I keep the bone in because the bone would give you that extra little bit of flavor. And it was like $3 a pound. Yeah. And I'm a poor college student at the time, and I'm eating like super clean and organic, and when I have patients now, they're like, oh, I don't have the money to eat this good. I'm like, oh, no, you do. Believe me, this is how I did it. And I can have firsthand experience.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I did, too. It's like, oh, I don't have enough money for cooking oil. Well, luckily I have the skin on. So, yeah, everything just like that.
Exactly.
I'm doing the same thing this morning, but later I'm going to have some tikka masala, which is like an Indian spicy tomato curry. So yeah, I just saw this video last night on YouTube of I think it was French guy cooking was his name. So give a shout out to that guy, and his tikka masala that he made was really good. So anytime you make like Indian food, you get to play with the spice rack a lot, and that's what I love. It's like super flavorful food.
Love it, man. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, so today in this episode, we're going to be talking about minerals and mineral deficiency and how to test for minerals, because oftentimes we hear, you got to take your multivitamin, multimineral thing, your supplement, but people don't really talk much about what you're getting in your minerals or what minerals that you need. I think often we hear a lot about calcium, but that's about it in the mainstream. We just know, hey, make sure you drink your milk to get your calcium. But besides that, you don't hear too much about magnesium or your selenium or your iodine or all of these other minerals and what do they do for us. And you think someone who focuses on gardening or farming, they know a lot about minerals because it's kind of what your food eats, right? Yes. And depending on where it comes from. So they might have a different balance. So we're going to go ahead and today and kind of talk about minerals and get and go through it all. So the first question that I would want to ask you, and I think that our listeners might be thinking of, is like, it's like, what is a mineral and like, why do we need it? What's the difference between mineral and vitamin?
Great question. So both vitamins and minerals and water, for instance, these are all micronutrients. So we have our macronutrients, which are like our proteins, fats, and carbs. And this is kind of where, calories come from, because macronutrients are your protein, fat, and carbs, right? There's going to be 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate, 4 calories per gram of protein, and then 8 to 9 grams of calories per gram of fat. So the whole calorie model is, oh, well, fats have more calories, so avoid it, right? That's kind of that thinking. And that's really looking at macronutrients. The problem is we're not looking at the micronutrients. So macronutrients are important. And in a paleo diet or an anti-inflammatory diet, we can actually be macronutrient agnostic, meaning the ratios of protein, fat to carbs can be tweaked up and down based upon your needs, right? If you're a CrossFit athlete or a triathlon, yeah, you're going to need higher levels of carbohydrate. But on the same standpoint, if you have metabolic syndrome and you're coming into a paleo diet or a primal diet, we may have to really ramp those carbohydrates much lower. We may need to rely more on just non-starchy vegetables before we touch any other carbohydrates, and then we're really being higher in fat and moderately in protein, depending on where we're at. And again, that approach, we're really looking at the quality of these macronutrients. So hormone-free, antibiotic, organic, like no pesticides, no chemicals. So that's kind of like the macronutrient end. I know I'm kind of like sidestepping your question a little bit, but I'm kind of giving it a little foundation. So
Yeah, exactly.
So macro is like protein, fat, carbs, but we also want to make sure there's quality and cleanliness in those carbs, right? Not the pesticides, not the chemicals, not the hormones. Now, on that note, underneath we have our micro. We have our vitamins, minerals, and good quality water. So in that standpoint, vitamins and minerals are going to be activators. So Paul Chek always had this great analogy. I loved it because it really resonated. Vitamins and minerals are like nails in the wood. So the wood is going to be like the macronutrients. So if we have like rotting wood and we're putting golden nails into rotting wood, meaning we're eating crappy macronutrients with poor quality, but we're taking all these expensive nutrients and vitamins and minerals, the vitamins and minerals are like golden nails and the rotten wood are like the macronutrients. So you can see, right, golden nails and rotten wood is not going to get the job done. So we want to make sure the macronutrients stand on top of everything. And then once we get down to the micronutrients, that's where the vitamins and minerals matter because they're activators. They're going to help solidify the foundation on the macronutrients. I'll give you just a minute there to kind of break that down and ask any follow-ups there, Barris.
Oh yeah, that is an easy breakdown. It's basically you can't eat McDonald's and take an expensive pill to make everything work right.
Thank you.
So just saying, hey, well, and that's often what a lot of the research that says, well, vitamin supplements aren't beneficial. Sometimes it's because people think that they can eat like crap or have a bad lifestyle and use that like, oh, okay, well, it's okay. I can do that because I take a multivitamin, so I don't need to eat right. So that sometimes messes things up. So for people, make sure you know that that's not how it works. You want to make sure that you're eating the right foods first, and then and isn't that the same way that you do in your practice as well? Like some people, they want to get tested for their nutrients, and you want to make sure that they're eating the right diet, because if they first get tested before, like everything's going to be off, and you kind of already know that, right? And then they start to change their diet, and then you see like, okay, and what's still missing after you get the food right?
Exactly. That totally makes sense. And here's the thing, right? I love this little slogan. I saw it on Facebook and I just saved it. It's such a great slogan. If you want to look like $1 million, you can't eat from the dollar menu. It really rings true. And supplements are important these days just because of the fact that our soils have become depleted by our conventional agricultural system. So the quality of the minerals and vitamins in a certain food is going to be dependent upon the soil. And if that soil has been eroded by lack of organic farming or excessive fertilizers, especially the NPK fertilizers, this can disrupt the topsoil. This can disrupt the soil quality itself, and we need healthy soil, healthy minerals, healthy microbiota in the soil for the nutrients to then produce adequate vitamins and minerals in the grass, in the vegetables, right? Which again, meats, the animals, the cows, they're going to eat the grass, right? The chickens are going to eat the bugs, right? So we need healthy vegetation so our animals become nutrient replete as well.
Yeah. So we need good minerals in our soil for our animals so they can be healthy, but also for us, right? So that when we eat our spinach that's supposed to be loaded with these minerals that we're actually getting, like I don't want to say, oh, eat spinach, it's going to have a lot of magnesium, and then you go to a farm that has a bunch of pesticides sprayed on them so it doesn't actually have what it's supposed to have, so then you're just like chewing on like just a bunch of cellulose and nothing else.
Exactly.
So
and it's really
that's why
important.
Organic is important.
Exactly. And there's this Senate report. It's called Senate Document 264. This is a really interesting Senate document. Basically, what it showed was, it's a document that came out in 1936, and it was basically done by the government. And what they found was that there was significant nutrient depletion. So here's one summary of it, right? The alarming fact is that foods, fruits, vegetables, and grains are now being raised on millions of acres of land that no longer contain enough certain needed nutrients and are starving us no matter how much we eat of them. And that comes from the U.S. Senate Document 264. So feel free and Google that. Now this is important, and this is why we need organic farming. But even organic farming may not be enough because of the damage to our soil. So for instance, they find that soil that's depleted in manganese, the plants that then grow in that soil will have 50% less vitamin C. This is important, right? We're talking micronutrients now, vitamins, minerals, that if the soil is disrupted, even if we're eating organic, if that organic food is grown in a depleted soil, that product, that animal, that plant may not have the full spectrum of nutrients that we want. So we want to make sure we're trying to get organic farming standards, because organic farming means that there's no pesticides or chemicals used for 3 years in that soil. There's typically crop rotation where we're not depleting the soil, and then there's idea of like putting certain things back into the soil, whether it's humus or whether it's whatever type of organic farming techniques there are to help replete the soil so the minerals and the topsoil can then be nutrient dense and really help utilize the minerals and feed them to the plants so we have higher vitamins and minerals in our food. So that's always the foundation, is making sure we're eating organic, nutrient dense food. That's first. And then second would be taking high quality, absorbable, nutrient dense or micronutrient dense vitamin and mineral support to kind of fill in the gaps of what we're missing just based on our diet.
What would you say would be some of the more common mineral deficiencies?
So one of the biggest ones out there is going to be magnesium deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple reasons why. And this is, you can just go on PubMed and Google magnesium deficiency. This isn't even controversial. Even in the mainstream research, there's studies in the 70s and 80s talking about this stuff.
Yeah, and it's still going on.
Yeah, it's still going on. Basically, magnesium, one, is used for over 300 different enzymatic systems or processes in the body. So there's a lot of reasons why we need magnesium. That's step one. Step two is if we eat a lot of refined sugar, magnesium is also needed for blood sugar or sugar metabolism. So if we're eating a lot of refined sugar, hey, I mean, have you looked at how our sugar consumption's increased over the last 100 years, right? 1900, 4 pounds per year. Today, 140 pounds per year, right? That's like pretty insane how much we've increased, about 40 times. So that's a lot of extra refined carbohydrate. That's going to cause us to go through our sugar reserves faster. That's one. Number two, we're living more stress, right? Magnesium is a stress buffer. It's a natural beta blocker. It's there to help relax us and chill us out.
Yeah.
That's why people use natural calm at night to kind of wind down, right? So
Exactly.
Magnesium's important to wind down. So if we're stressed out, we're eating a whole bunch of refined sugar, we're automatically going to be setting ourselves up for magnesium deficiency issues.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what else it helps with is muscle cramps and like twitching and all that stuff. If you're having, problems after your workout or you wake up in the middle of the night and having cramps, like that's a key sign that you might be deficient in this essential mineral. And you need this for like you mentioned, so many different processes, but especially when it comes to the neuromuscular activity, right? This is one of the common things that I would tell people. Um, I would tell people when they would come into the natural food store. What are some of the things that that are definite that we see even the Western medicine taking a closer look at, and magnesium was one of those few things that if you're having like a heart attack, they might pump some magnesium into your body to regulate a normal heart rhythm. You know what I mean? So magnesium is definitely one of those things that you want to take in, and your body does a good job regulating that. If you take in too much, your body has there's a good sign, and I think you might know what it is if you're taking in a little excess.
Yeah, exactly. So magnesium is one of those things. You take too much, you're going to have loose stool. So that's one of those extra minerals that I would get looked at. We can just do a red blood cell magnesium. Now, not your magnesium serum, right? Because when we do a blood test, we'll see magnesium on there, and that's typically your magnesium serum. That's just looking at what's in the blood. Red blood cell magnesium is actually looking at what's actually in the cell. So in the blood is kind of like you're in the ocean and there's like a whole bunch of magnesium like floating around you, right? Red blood cell magnesium is actually what's inside of you. If you're the cell and the water is the blood, right? The magnesium in the water is the magnesium serum. The red blood cell magnesium is actually what's inside of you at the time. So that's a better marker for red blood cell magnesium. And I like to see it in the upper fives, 5.8, 5.6, 5.7. The top 50% is a really good range to be at for magnesium.
Yeah, definitely. So, and like we mentioned before, it's one of those great minerals. I mean, you can also do like transdermal to make sure that you're having enough, and make sure that you're eating as many leafy greens as possible to get your magnesium through food first. But because of what we've done to our soils, you might need some supplementation as well. So if you want normal heart rhythm and nerve transportation, bone growth, body temperature, I mean, you name it, testosterone boost, calcium absorption, all like make sure you got your magnesium in check.
Exactly. And again, you can go on Google Scholar and you can just pump some of these things in there. Magnesium deficiency. Like there's lots of studies on there. I mean, there's some people that talk about the Senate document that I just mentioned, it being kind of debunked. But again, there's lots of studies individually on all of these different nutrients that show deficiencies, like magnesium deficiency. It can cause congestive heart failure. Oh my gosh, like that's one of the top causes of death today. What if magnesium could help that person? It may not be the cure because that person is probably low in vitamin D, has insulin resistance, maybe is sedentary, but maybe that magnesium in conjunction with a full holistic program may be helpful outside of just statins and blood pressure medications, right?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
So also take a look at the research of Dr. Bruce Ames out of UC Berkeley. He's done lots of research on some of these micronutrients. I had the ability to speak on the same stage as him last year over at the Smart Life Forum at the Silicon Valley Health Institute. He's got a lot of interesting information on a lot of these different nutrient deficiencies. Now, shifting from magnesium, I like to shift to selenium deficiency next. You ready for that, Barris?
Oh yeah, let's go selenium.
So selenium,
that's one that a lot of people don't know about. So everybody, I just want to, before you go into it, make sure that you're paying attention, because a lot of people, this is one of those sneaky ones that people aren't really paying attention to.
Yeah, selenium is one of these really important nutrients. It's actually a precursor to glutathione. It helps with glutathione. It's actually a precursor. It kind of gets absorbed with vitamin E. Selenium and vitamin E are like brother and sister, kind of like copper and vitamin C, if you will. So you see selenium and vitamin E together. Selenium is one of these nutrients that's really important for glutathione and detox, like I mentioned. It's also really important for thyroid hormone health. When our thyroid gland spits out T4, which is our inactive thyroid hormone, it has to get converted to T3, right? So T4 is inactive, T3 is active, and part of that conversion process, you need these 5' deiodinase enzymes. This deiodinase enzyme, deiodinase means de-iodine, meaning pulling off iodine, right? T4 stands for tyrosine with 4 molecules of iodine. T3 stands for tyrosine with 3. So this de-iodine means pulling off one iodine, and the enzyme that does that is a selenium-based enzyme. So we need that selenium-based enzyme to pull off the iodine so we can activate our thyroid hormone. So one more time, selenium is important for activating T4 to T3. If we're low in selenium, we won't be able to make that conversion happen.
Yeah, so this would also, I'm guessing, help with if there were any excess iodine exposure, possibly.
Oh,
Right?
I love it, Barris. I love it. So there's a whole thing out there with iodine being evil, right? We have Dr. Karazian's camp saying iodine's evil, it causes autoimmune conditions. We have Dr. Brownstein's camp that says we need iodine, it's super important. And I kind of walk right in the middle and I say they're both right. Now, the reason why they're both right is because there are some people that, yeah, they're in iodine deficient areas of the world, right, the goiter belt, and they're not getting enough iodine. But at the same standpoint, if we just go jack their iodine up, that could cause, there's a couple different effects. There's a Jod-Basedow effect, and there's also another effect. I'll look it up here in just a second, where having too much or too little iodine can actually cause an autoimmune type of response. So really, really important that if we have iodine, one, we always want to make sure selenium levels are balanced first. The reason why is the process of iodination, where we're making thyroid hormone. If we don't have enough selenium, the process of adding in tyrosine and adding in iodine, it spits off hydrogen peroxide. And that hydrogen peroxide is very, very inflammatory and can cause your B cells, right? Your B cells to start infiltrating and start attacking the thyroid tissue. So we really want to make sure that we have enough selenium, because that selenium will actually buffer the hydrogen peroxide and take it and cleave off an oxygen and make it H2O and oxygen. So we have water and oxygen, which is very benign, where the hydrogen peroxide is more inflammatory. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And then, so yeah, that just is a great way to put it, because a lot of people like to either just choose one side or the other, and you have to always just have an open mind and kind of be looking at why are they thinking that it's this way, and let's kind of see their side and see the other way. But yeah, definitely, I can see why. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so again, I want to just touch upon a couple of things, right? We have the Wolff-Chaikoff effect, right? That's where too much iodine can actually cause this in the short term, right? The Wolff-Chaikoff, right? And on the other side of the fence, we have the Jod-Basedow phenomenon, in which low thyroid causes an enlarged gland, an enlarged thyroid gland. So those are given too much will go into a hyperthyroid state with Jod-Basedow, and people that have the Wolff-Chaikoff effect, there's too much iodine, can cause a hypothyroid state, because the body goes, oh, we have all this iodine, we don't want to make too much thyroid hormone, let's shut down. We go into a hypo state. And then Jod-Basedow is the opposite, where we have super low iodine. The body's ready and geared up to actually make thyroid hormone, but we give it too much and we go into a hyper. So we have Wolff-Chaikoff on the low end, and we have Jod-Basedow on the high end. So we have this interesting balancing act. So it's very delicate way you have to go in there and make sure we give some good micronutrient support. In my opinion, working on the adrenals and also working on selenium levels, also magnesium and zinc as well, before we even touch iodine, because iodine we can easily go too high or too low and cause this type of hyper or hypo effect depending on where we're at with our iodine levels.
Yeah, definitely. So being that we're talking about iodine and it being a player in the thyroid, have you seen, well, just because, we want to talk about all these minerals as well, have you also seen that as being something that people might be missing? Because I know one of one of the main ways we have it in our food is in iodized salt, right? And it's kind of like everything's stripped away and then we artificially like put it back in because if we didn't, there'd be a lot of problems. Um,
Exactly.
and then but at the same time, because I notice even myself, I'll salt my food uh, very vigorously, and
Yeah.
my mom will tell me like, you don't have to put that much salt. And I said, well, why not? I don't eat processed food, so I actually don't get enough salt. And like I guess my family has I know my dad's side of the family has a history of high blood pressure, and she's like, oh, like and you're part African American, like that's more common. But I'm like, if anything, and I've had it tested multiple times, like my blood pressure is usually, if anything, on the low end. And I'm
Yeah.
like, Mom, like I actually need salt so that way I don't get lightheaded when I work out. I need to conduct electricity. I need salt. So if we're
Yeah.
telling people not to eat salt, and one of the main ways we get our iodine is through salt, are we causing people to become iodine deficient? Because unless they're eating a lot of seafood and like saltwater fish, like I can see that they can possibly be missing out on this essential micronutrient.
Yeah, it's very possible. There are some studies, though, showing iodized salt actually being a stimulating factor for autoimmune conditions. There's some studies showing when societies introduce iodized salt, they start having more incidents of autoimmune conditions. So it's like this double-edged sword. I mean, do your best to get high-quality iodine in your
Hmm.
diet, whether it's fish or, high-quality seaweed. I think you should just make sure you have a good multi that has the minimum. Again, the
Hmm.
RDA, which is the minimum kind of amount that you want. Dr. Brownstein calls it rats, drugs, and assumptions. I love that because basically that's kind of like the minimum. And I think having a 200 to 250 microgram level of iodine in your multi is just a good baseline. And then trying to get the rest from good high quality foods is a good next step. Now, if we see that you have thyroid issues and we're not seeing autoimmunity and we're seeing potentially lower levels of T4 and such, maybe giving some iodine may be a good next step. And I always give iodine. I give Lugol's second generation. The reason why I give the second generation is because it has higher amounts of vitamin C in there, selenium, fulvic minerals, and it has some extra B vitamins. And I try to make sure all of the cofactors are there, and I try to make sure we've repleted selenium even before so that if any of these reactions happen, we're not going to be having an inflammatory cascade. And we always start way on the lower end and taper up, and be careful for things like hair loss or palpitations or symptoms that may indicate that we're having an autoimmune type of episode or a hyper type of response to the thyroid.
Yeah,
Or even a
definitely.
hypo, like we talked
Yeah,
about with the Wolff-Chaikoff.
yeah, definitely. And that's why if you get salt, pink Himalayan salt, real salt, and I think there's like another one, Celtic salt, like go for one of these really good brands so that way you make sure that it's not just stripped away sodium chloride and then, oh, by the way, maybe we should add some iodine back to it. Like things work like a lot of these nutrients and stuff like from Earth have been here a lot longer than us, and they know what they're doing. So when we take out that balance, like we cause problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said it right. That's why I'll use the Himalayan, the Celtic, or the real salt, just because they haven't added in extra iodine. It's just kind of what's in the minerals, what's in the ocean salt, or what's in, for instance, real salts, what's in Redmond, the Redmond Salt Reserve over in Utah, and you're not going to get a super saturation of iodine in that. You get a
Yeah.
couple dozen micrograms worth, and then if you're eating good quality eggs, if you're eating some fish, then you're good to go.
Hmm.
That tends to be a good starting point. I am concerned there is a lot of controversy over what's happening in Fukushima. There are people out there that say, hey, it's not really a big deal. But then when you actually study what's really happening, yeah, it's not a big deal because they keep on raising the lower safe limits. So the lower
Yeah.
safe limits at this level, we go above it, with the radiation, and then they just raise the safe lower limit. Oh, look, it's no longer a problem. It's like, yeah, it's because you got a moving goalpost going there. It doesn't take a genius to say, wait a minute, why does this goalpost keep on moving? So I'm just a little more skeptical at, trying to get your iodine from seaweed sources that may be coming from Japan or anywhere near Fukushima.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned zinc earlier, and this is especially with athletes, something that can easily get depleted, or they might not have enough. And when it comes to being at your best, something that's super important to have is a proper amount of zinc. What are, I guess, some of the sources that we can find zinc in, and what are some of the signs or some of the reasonings why we might be deficient in it in the first place?
Oh, love that question. So zinc's one of my favorite minerals, right? Zinc is a cofactor for hydrochloric acid, and it's also a cofactor for testosterone.
Yeah.
So I love zinc for those reasons, because it builds testosterone and it helps your digestion. So that's kind of like number one. So one, if our digestion isn't good, even if we're eating nutrient, supportive foods, nutrient-dense foods, we may not get a whole bunch of zinc because we may not be able to break it down. But some of our like really paleo-friendly foods, oysters are going to be great, grass-fed beef, liver, lamb, venison, any of your animal foods are going to be super good. Dark chocolate, pork, mushrooms, sesame seeds, tahini, these are all really good sources of zinc. So that's a really good way to maximize, to make sure that you're getting enough, is to make sure you're eating nutrient-dense foods. Now, in that standpoint, if you're having problems with absorption, then we may want to talk about getting some hydrochloric acid on boards there, right?
Mm-hmm.
To help break down and make sure we can ionize the zinc. And on top of that, really simple, do a zinc tally test, right? Zinc chloride, really simple. You can get it from Designs for Health or Metagenics. You can now just email me and I'll send some over to you. But basically how it works is this, really simple. You're going to take about a tablespoon or about a 5 milliliter shot of zinc sulfate. You're going to swallow that zinc, and depending on how the zinc tastes will tell you, generally speaking, how deficient you are. So here's the rule of thumb. The faster and the better it tastes, the more deficient you are. The worse and faster it tastes, or I should say, the more unpalatable, or the more bitter it tastes, the faster and the more bitter it tastes means the less you need the zinc. So better and faster, most efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Bitter and fast means the most sufficient. I'll give you an opportunity to break that down, Barris.
So it's almost like if you're putting something into like a pot, if that spills out real quick, oh wait, we noticed we already have too much. But if you just keep pouring, it's like, oh, nothing's happening. It tastes just fine. Like that's when it's like, okay, you're obviously on empty. That's why you haven't noticed anything.
Yes. And that's your basic zinc chloride. That's called a zinc tally test. You can Google that. That's a really good baseline. There's actually a couple of studies that have supported. They've tested like intracellular zinc levels, and they correlated it to people doing a zinc tally test, and they do find it correlates pretty well. So it's a really good initial screening for zinc deficiency. Zinc also affects your DNA. We talked about this, I think, last podcast with the immune system. Zinc affects your immune system, but it also affects your epigenetics due to zinc fingers, right? These are these little essentially they're almost like epigenetic triggers. They play a role in DNA recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which is really important. They're like a transcription factor that really helps with activating DNA.
You know what I also thought too, because often athletes, this is one of the things that I see like with athletes, is being zinc deficient. If you're an athlete and you're sweating a lot, you're losing some of these minerals. Isn't it like if you're excessively sweating, you can lose some zinc through your sweat?
Absolutely.
Like, it'd probably be important for an athlete, especially, with all the benefits converting, your DHT to testosterone and all of the other benefits. Being sick doesn't help you if you have to work out and now you're sick. So helping your immune system, healing you from, I know it's really common to heal from wounds and protein synthesis and collagen. Like this is something really important, I think, all the athletes out there listening to should really pay attention to their zinc levels when absorbing B vitamins. Like if you're an athlete and you're low on zinc, that's a real low hanging fruit that you got to make sure that you're paying attention to.
Absolutely. So making sure you have good zinc levels is going to be important. Do a zinc tally test. We'll talk at the end of some general tests you can do to kind of look at nutrient levels across the board, some of the best tests that I use in my functional medicine practice. And just to kind of recap zinc here, zinc's important for testosterone. It's important for hydrochloric acid and breaking down food, right? If we can't break down and ionize our minerals, we can't absorb them. And it's also important for our immune function and for DNA, right? Zinc fingers, they have a huge effect at binding RNA and mediating these protein interactions, and they're really important for essentially these DNA-specific binding sequences. So really important, kind of confusing stuff. You don't have to understand it to get the benefit. Just make sure you're eating zinc, nutrient-dense foods. Make sure that you're able to digest it. And if you're concerned, make sure you're taking a high-quality zinc supplement, and just make sure, in general, you have a little bit of copper with your zinc supplementation, because if you go too high on zinc and no copper, you can actually create a copper deficiency.
Yeah. So you kind of moved right on to the next one. So speaking of copper, and you mentioned zinc, and I know one of the other ones is like anemia that sometimes is when you're deficient. Talk about the deficiencies and what are the functions of copper in our body.
That's a great one. I don't have a ton of information actually on copper, mainly because people tend to be low in zinc, right? So you have this copper zinc balance. So when people tend to be low in zinc, they tend to be a little bit high in copper. So if you go high copper, right, you have it's called Wilson syndrome. You have these Kaiser rings or Kaiser-Fleischer rings, these like basically this little ring around where your iris is, and you see the change of color. You can see copper issues or copper excess with that. So you tend to see a lot more neurological issues when we have higher copper, right? We have Wilson syndrome, that's a big one. So I don't tend to worry about copper deficiency as much. I'm more concerned about zinc deficiency potentially being caused by a copper excess. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, definitely. So it's more so unless someone's like anemic, are you really looking into like something like copper?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more concerned about people having a copper excess because of the zinc thing, right? Because of all that. So that's kind of where I put my focus at. Again, you'll sometimes see this, like we'll talk about some of these tests, like on a Nutri-Eval or on a SpectraCell test. Sometimes we'll see some of these things, but again, like some of the foods that are high in zinc are also high in copper, right?
Yeah,
Seafood,
exactly.
oysters, right? Kale, mushrooms, seeds, nuts, right? Avocado. So a lot of these foods I already mentioned being high in zinc. So it's like if you're eating real food, you're gonna be in pretty good place. And if you're having malabsorption, right, because of digestion stuff, well, those malabsorptions are probably across the board, right? You're probably going to have malabsorption with copper and zinc, right? It's probably not going to be just specific to one. That's why making sure the nutrient supportive foods are there at the foundation, and then we can go deeper with specific testing and target the deficiencies. Again, I don't see copper being a huge issue, but I'm not saying that doesn't mean I haven't seen them on a SpectraCell or a Nutri-Eval either.
Yeah, definitely. I think one that, I mean, we know that is coming and that everybody needs to pay attention to is iron. And I think this is one of the big ones that a lot of people are deficient in. But it is important to make sure, I guess, not just over supplement and just say, oh, well, just in case, I'm just going to supplement a whole bunch of iron. We have to kind of pay attention to this thing.
Yes.
Especially with women, and especially with women athletes. So let's talk about iron's role in health and in function, and what are some of the deficiencies.
Oh, this is great. So I just had a patient that came to me yesterday that was super anemic, right? We look at her blood test. She had her MCV, MCH, MCHC all low across the board. All those markers mean is they're basically indicative of how big the hemoglobin molecule is.
Mm-hmm.
And then we looked across the board with low hemoglobin, low hematocrit, and her red blood cells were actually fine. So when we start seeing the size of the hemoglobin and the size of the hematocrit and the size of the, these different blood cell markers drop in size, this is
Mm-hmm.
indicative of a microcytic anemia, right? The blood cells are getting smaller due to lack of iron. And iron's super important because it carries oxygen, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's helping to carry oxygen throughout the body. So we need oxygen because cellular metabolism, aerobic metabolism, is oxygen dependent. Go hold your breath, right? You're not going to get too far. Go take a candle, right? Light a candle, put a glass jar over the candle. What happens to the candle? It goes up
Goes out.
because
Mm-hmm.
oxygen's needed, right?
Yeah.
So on that note, you're mainly going to see this problem in women. Why women? Because women have this awesome system called their female hormone system, which creates menstruation, bleeding, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is their period where they bleed every month. So
Mm-hmm.
typically on day 27, 28, there's a sudden drop in estrogen and progesterone. That sudden drop then causes the uterine lining to shed, and that shedding of the uterine lining causes bleeding. So we tend to have this recycling of iron, or this disposing of iron every month. So we tend to never really get too high with women that have a healthy hormonal cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Now, women that don't, let's say they're more estrogen dominant, they don't have that sudden drop in progesterone, they'll bleed excessively, right? We know this
Yep.
off the bat because they're going through more than 3 or 4 tampons a day. 4 or more is kind of like, oops, you're getting into like anemia territory, right? They're bleeding more than 3 or 4 days. They're starting to lose more iron. So when we run blood tests to rule this out, we're looking at iron saturation. Are you in the low 20s? We're looking at TIBC. We're looking at UIBC. These are binding proteins that go higher when our iron's lower, right? So if you're trying to grab more of something, you're grabbing more and faster when you're low in something. So binding proteins go higher when iron is lower. So we'll see these binding proteins start to go high. We will start to see ferritin actually drop beneath 30 or so. Now, like we talked about with magnesium serum is not a good way to assess magnesium deficiency. We want red blood cell magnesium. Now, the equivalent for iron is ferritin. Ferritin's more of our storage form of iron. That's the marker we want to look at along with iron saturation, along with low or higher levels of TIBC and UIBC. So we want to look at all of those, and then we'll even look down the list at RBC, hematocrit, hemoglobin, MCV, MCH, MCHC. We'll start to see these drop, but again, we're not going to see them all drop, right? We have our pathological anemia where it's like, whoa, like you are really bad, your iron's super low, like we got to give you a blood transfusion, to the, hey, your iron's really low, take this iron supplement, to the, hey, your iron's starting to get low. And where functional medicine comes in, we can really start to see when you're starting to get low and or when you're starting to need supplementation to fix that.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, giving an iron supplementation is palliative. It will never fix the underlying issue because if it's a hormonal issue, we have to fix the hormones. If it's a fibroid issue and the fibroid's stealing all of the iron, well, we got to work on the fibroid. If it's a low hydrochloric acid thing and we're not breaking down the hydrochloric acid, or we have a leaky gut and infection and we're not absorbing it, we got to fix that. So it's never, for the most part, unless you're a vegan vegetarian and you're not eating much iron, it's never going to be fully fixed or addressed with a supplement. The underlying hormones, the underlying fibroid, the underlying low hydrochloric acid, the underlying malabsorption due to an infection, those all have to be fixed individually to get to the root cause.
Yeah, and also, even with that being said, a lot of times when people are coming from their doctors, because this is something that I had to deal with, helping my mom with and my sister with anemia and getting them even the right type of supplementation to just help them in the meantime of fixing that underlying cause, they're usually given a form of iron that's in their supplementation that's
awful.
Ferrous sulfate, which is like not like that absorbable, and people know because guess what? Like if you're having diarrhea or constipation or nausea or vomiting, like that's your body saying like, this isn't working. Either if you have diarrhea or you're vomiting, that's saying whatever you just gave me, get it out of me. And if you're having constipation, it's just slowing everything down. It's like you just backed up your toilet, and and it's like now everything's stuck.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, let's talk about, so even the people that are deficient and then they go to their doctors like, oh, okay, well here's some, ferrous sulfate or gluconate. Like both of those aren't really, they're not like a chelated form that like actually absorbs pretty well.
Exactly. So I like giving my iron in a little bit of liver, so we have some pre-digested liver fractions. I also like giving
Yeah.
iron ferrous succinate. Succinate's a good amino acid chelate, but we're giving
Mhm.
it again with the liver, and then we're also giving it with vitamin C and even some B12, because this will all help the absorption of it, makes it
Yeah.
absorb a lot better. It's also a great one called Floridix that's very good too. That's liquid, so if we're having absorption issues, Floridix can be really, really helpful. Again,
Mhm.
ferrous sulfate, the big thing is you start to see constipation, you start to see really dark stools. It's not a real highly absorbable iron, so getting a good one is going to be important to start. And just note, again, non-heme iron sources, non-heme meaning getting iron from plant-based sources, does not have a really good impact on your iron levels. I mean, people will say get it from spinach, right? It's a non-heme source, not the best. Much better doing grass-fed meat, much better off doing liver. Liver is your ultimate. These are better sources. Animal products are going to have much higher levels, much more nutrient-dense levels of iron.
Yeah, definitely. And make sure, because when you said the Floridix, I know they have two different kinds. They have one that is like yeast free and doesn't have any gluten. So make sure you keep your eyes out for that one. I think it's like a lighter box or something, but it should say yeast and gluten free on your box. If
Yeah,
you're gonna go for that one.
yeah, that's a good one. I actually use Energizing Iron by Integrative Therapeutics. I carry them on my site. The only issue with them, they have a little bit of soy in there, which
Hmm.
I'm not a fan of, but they have, in my opinion, the best product, because you have a little bit of eleuthero. Eleuthero is an adaptogenic herb, but it's also natural iron in eleuthero, which is great. They have the
Hmm.
liver, they have the vitamin C, they have some of the B12 in there. So a lot of the cofactors, and it's non-GMO soy, and it's a small amount, so it tends to be worth it. So I have that on my site. If anyone wants to take a look at that, feel free and check it out.
Yeah, definitely. Um, and then so another one that I wanted to mention briefly was potassium, and this is
Mm.
something that I think maybe it's because of the we talk about magnesium a lot, and the different things about the muscle contractions and the nerve impulses, and you have to understand that potassium is another one of those things that has that interplay with it. I mean, if you think about it, the way that our cells work, it works through this kind of sodium potassium like ion chain. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about potassium and its roles.
So potassium is like a really important electrolyte, and we have like our
Hmm.
electrolytes are like magnesium, potassium, sodium, calcium. They really help conduct like the nerves, right? They help conduct action potential in the body. Without them, right, we have hyponatremia. This is what happens when we drink too much water come marathon time, right? There's always someone every year that drinks too much and dies because they don't have enough of the minerals, right, the activators in our body. So
Hmm.
if we drink too much water, we can dilute them, and then we're not going to be able to help, conduct nerves as well. And this is important because nerves and muscles and the heart, that's a muscle, right? The lungs are a muscle, so we need them to be super, super healthy. So we'll
Hmm.
see hypokalemia, right? We'll start to see weakness, right? We can start to see heart issues. Again, the big thing is we want to make sure that we have enough of these electrolytes. So one of the first things we can see is cramping. So if we're sweating, if we're having maybe diarrhea, excessive sweating, we're getting dehydrated, maybe we have an eating disorder, maybe we're taking too many laxatives, or we're just eating super poor diet, we can start to have lower potassium, right? Palpitation, constipation, fainting. So getting good potassium-rich foods are going to be, essential. And even taking a electrolyte support product
Hmm.
would be helpful. There's a couple that I use, but getting good quality sea salt in your body will be super helpful.
Hmm.
Again, like a lot of our potassium-rich foods are going to be like leafy greens, even white potatoes. Squash is super good. Fish, salmon, avocados, mushrooms. You can even do a little bit of banana. It's high in sugar, but these are great ways to get good levels if you're low. I have an electrolyte synergy product that has all of the electrolytes in there without all the sugar and dyes and crap like you get in Gatorade. That can be
Hmm.
helpful. Just making sure you salt your water with a good quality sea salt that will have some sodium and potassium in there is a really great way to make sure you have enough too.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, right? Like people would drink like so much water, and it if it doesn't really get to the cells, like it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah,
But if you just sprinkle a little bit of high quality salt, and sometimes I tell people, and they're like, "Ew, that's not." I'm like, you can't really taste it. Um,
yeah.
but like if you put salt in the water, it will be good. Trust me, it'll be good for you. And that's what I do when I go for a sauna session. I just put a little bit of salt in my water because I know that I'm not just losing water from the sweat, but there's also like sweat is salty. I'm losing electrolytes as well.
Exactly. So having good potassium, making sure you have a good potassium in your supplement. Again, there's a couple of things you can do if you're seeing your urine in the morning is too acidic. It's in the lower sixes, 6.5. On a pH strip, first morning urination, you
Mhm.
can supplement with potassium and magnesium together. These are, bicarbonate
But
alkaline
mhm.
sources that can help alkalize the urine. Again, I'm not a huge fan of this. I've been taught this in my functional medicine education. It can be very helpful with people that are chronically ill, is just making sure you're doing all the diet stuff. Take your first morning urination, see if your
Mhm.
urine's on the lower end, right, the low sixes, and try to get it to the upper sixes, low sevens by taking a potassium, magnesium, bicarbonate, glycinate support before bed. That can be helpful. I don't think it's getting at the root issue, but I've heard some anecdotal evidence that people do see a benefit with some of the supplementation before bed.
Yeah, definitely. Is there any specific ones that you
Moss
want to talk about?
Nutrition, yeah, Moss Nutrition makes a potassium magnesium bicarbonate product that's really, really good. Dr. Moss formulated it himself. You go to mossnutrition.com, you can find that one.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that before. You said Moss Nutrition, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any other um, nutrients that you wanted to mention?
Well,
Micronutrients.
we have things like calcium, for instance, and
Well,
I
that's a
think
big one.
calcium
Yeah.
is, yeah, I think it's one of these overrated nutrients because we need vitamin K with calcium to have calcium go into the bone. We need healthy
Hmm.
vitamin K, so getting healthy fats in our diet, eating healthy grass-fed butter, getting these nutrients up are going to help calcium work better. So, I mean, calcium is one of these things. We're worried about bones, but half our bones are made from protein. So we got to have adequate protein levels. And we got
Hmm.
12 other minerals in our bone outside of just calcium. So we want to have a spectrum of minerals. So really making sure you're eating nutrient-dense foods. Like if you look on the healthy mineral list, right? The foods
Yeah.
that you see come up time and time again for minerals are dark leafy greens. You see
Yeah.
squashes over and over again. You see avocado. You see fish, right? You see mushrooms. You see grass-fed meat. You see liver. You see oysters. So it's like, hello, just make sure you're getting some of these foods in your
Yeah.
diet on a daily basis, if not weekly basis.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Definitely. Like,
greens should be every day. The fish should be a couple times a week. The squashes and sweet potato, a couple times a week, depending on your blood sugar and such.
yeah, like kale, mustard greens, and
Yeah.
like what else? Avocados. These are not that hard to get in. And if you have a blender, just like blend it. Just do something. Like it's not. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
just
you
get them
mentioned,
in.
you see these foods come up over and over and over again. It's probably a good idea that you should include them into your diet.
Absolutely. And I think it's good to have a good quality multi in your support product, in
Hmm.
your kind of regimen. Just it's going to give you a baseline of certain nutrients. I call it my insurance policy, right?
Hmm.
I'm trying to eat nutrient dense foods, but we know based upon our soils that they just aren't the way they used to be 100 years ago. An apple 100 years ago isn't the same apple today, nutrient wise. So having a good quality supplement is my insurance policy. Using it from high quality brands like whether it's Thorne or Douglas or Designs for Health or Pure Encapsulations, I'm actually in the process of formulating my own kind. Basically, these companies are going to have the highest quality, the highest cleanliness. They're independently tested, third-party tested. They're going to be chelated. I mean, they're going to be bound to other amino acids that are going to be highly absorbable. They're going to make sure they break down in water so you're able to absorb them. You want to make sure you're getting a high-quality supplement that meets your needs, that you're going to be able to break down and absorb, assimilate, and utilize.
Yeah, definitely feel the same way. Yeah, so that was a lot of great information. We went over a lot of different topics, a lot of different micronutrients, and I hope that this was really helpful for the listeners out there, kind of wanting an overview of essential minerals, because we've talked about the vitamins before. So getting a scope over into what are some of the minerals and actually getting an idea, because they're probably told all the time about oh, you need calcium, or you drink more milk, or you need these vitamins or these minerals, but they don't really know why. You know what I mean? Or they could just go to the doctors and they're just like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to take this iron. I have anemia, but that's about it. That's all I know why that I'm taking it, but they might not be taking the right one. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of give everybody an overview of some of the things that might be helpful when it comes to supplementation and where to get your nutrients and minerals from. Was there anything else that you wanted to add today, Dr. Justin?
Well, just on one thing on the calcium, right? One of the best things for calcium, I'm not even talking about dairy. If you can handle raw dairy, that's great. But again, salmon, right? 1/2 can of salmon, eat the bones. You're getting, 25% of your daily calcium. Sardines, right? Sardines, bok choy, kale. Like, we're not even talking about like the milk mustache drinking your skim milk, right? We're talking about things that aren't even, dairy based. So if you're dairy sensitive, if you're like, oh, these paleo diets, they cut out milk, they cut out grains, where am I going to get my extra minerals? It's like, well, right there, right there. There's lots of nutrient density in these paleo foods. So start with there. And then on that note, if you're thinking like, all right, great, I'm eating good, I'm paleo, what's next? All right, well, one, you can make sure you're absorbing them, making sure your tummy is infection-free. That's number one. But number two, I recommend some micronutrient testing. There's 3 tests that I recommend off the bat. Again, depending on where you're at, I may recommend one for each person that may be different. So essentially, an organic acid test is a great test to run from Genova or Metametrics. Number 2, a SpectraCell micronutrient test is another great test to run. And number 3, a NutriVal urine/blood test from Genova or Metametrics is another great test. So we have organic acid, we have SpectraCell, and we have NutriEval. I'm going to put the links for these tests in the show notes. I'm also going to put it in the iPod or the iPad info thing if you're listening from the podcast on iTunes, or I'll put it in the YouTube description, so wherever you're at you can see it. Click on the link and that'll bring you right to my store where you can actually get these tests, so you can actually see where you're at if you want to dig deeper. Just want an option for people that, all right, they're already doing good, but now what's next? This is the next step, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. Well, sounds good, Dr. Justin. Again, for all the listeners, make sure that you go to beyondwellnessradio.com. This will allow you to get the first information. You'll be the first one, so make sure that you go to the sign-up page and sign up for our newsletter. We really appreciate the activity lately. We've been getting a lot more downloads. We're almost to 500,000 lifetime downloads. Wow. So that's really amazing. It makes us happy. We know that we're doing our thing and that we're giving the information that you guys want to hear. So again, make sure that you continue with the feedback. iTunes rating, we really appreciate it. We've been getting some more iTunes ratings, and we really appreciate that as well. So if you guys have any questions, make sure you go to beyondwellnessradio.com/questions, and you can tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, and really become a part of this. You can add in exactly what you want to hear, because I know we see the numbers, they keep going up, so we know that more people are listening, but don't be shy. Go ahead and reach out to us and let us know exactly what do you want to hear.
Awesome, Barris. Yeah, we're going to be at 1 million downloads in June. That's our run rate. I just ask everyone that's listening, this is your show. Barris and I are here to research and bring cutting-edge information for you. So we ask, if you like this show, just share it with one person that you know they could benefit from. And please give us feedback. We want your feedback. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. We want to provide better information for everyone listening.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much. And for next time, you guys have a good one.
Thanks, Bears.
Thank you.
Got a question for Dr. J? Go to beyondwellnessradio.com/question. Then tune in to hear the answer. Also, if you like the show, review us on iTunes. For more Beyond Wellness Radio, go to beyondwellnessradio.com.